AI Never Sleeps. I'm Ash Bennington, joined as always by Mikhail Voloshin, and today our special guest, Bethany Hunt. Bethany, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. All right, I have a bone to pick now with Mikhail, so let's sort this out. So you've been telling me about Bethany now for weeks. You send me a text message. You say you got to jump on the Zoom call and meet Bethany. I'm like, awesome, that's great. And then you're like, well, should we start recording now? And I'm like, recording what? So apparently we're doing a show.
We are, in fact, doing a show, and Ash is completely unprepared. So you guys are all in for a treat. He's going to stutter as much as I usually do this time around. It's going to be awesome.
Not a chance.
So, Bethany, you are fairly new to the programming game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I would mess around with basic and things in high school. I did take computer science, but I've never mastered the syntax of any language to be able to just, you know, drive out a program.
And yet, Bethany has been able to crank out several iPhone and Android apps, if I understand correctly, just through vibe coding over the course of the last, what, 2 months, something like that? Is that
Two
right?
months. Yeah, two
All
That's
months.
right, all right. Let's
phenomenal.
let's slow down and explain to people what we're talking about here, because I want to make sure everybody follows it. So, Bethany, you are not a programmer by trade, by training. This isn't something you've been doing now for decades.
Correct. So, stay-at-home parent for the last 18 years. And
Okay.
um always a tech enthusiast. I mean, I am the type of person who would set up their laptop to dual boot, in Linux and Windows and that kind of thing, but not a software developer, no. Not
Right.
a programmer.
So how do you get into this world of vibe coding? First of all, explain what vibe coding is for anybody who may not know it, because it's a pretty new
Okay.
term.
Yeah, so if you're using these AI agents and you're explaining what you want in programming, but in natural language, and that's vibe coding. So then it's creating the code for you. When these LLMs first were coming out, it's all about it. And testing the edge cases and seeing if you could break it, all these different things. Just loved it. And then finally the tools got good enough that there was an app that I had wanted forever. Um, and nobody would make it. And I have a lot of developer friends, and so I had shared the idea on Facebook for like the last 14 years. Hey, anybody want to make this as a hobby? But nobody did. And the tools got good enough. I thought, I wonder if I could just make that. And it turned out that I could. So then,
And and it was pretty quick. It was a pretty straightforward process, right?
yeah, it was, I mean, as long as you know how to think algorithmically and you're used to using a computer and that kind of thing, then yeah, I mean, it was easier than I thought it would be. So,
Now, that's a big if, by the way, for those folks at home that are following along. Algorithmic thinking is not necessarily something that comes naturally to everyone. There are even programmers that I know of that have tried to get into vibe coding, and they just don't explain the procedural logic of their code right, and the AI does the best it can, but it doesn't always do what you want it to. In your case, however, you were able to get it to obey your instructions, and it was even able to slap a UI on this thing, right?
yeah, so they're all, I have kind of a whole process now because now I've done it 8 times. So I have it kind of lined out. Do you want me to get into the process now or
Wait,
talk about?
you've built 8 apps?
Yeah,
And how long?
2 months.
Yeah.
So in 8 weeks, you've built 8 apps without ever having true traditional programming experience other than like high school and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty wild. That's a thing.
It's
See why
crazy.
I wanted to have her on, Ash?
Yeah, well, now it all makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
We
Now,
live in wild times. It's
why
amazing.
don't you first talk about what this app was that you've wanted people to build forever, and then you'll talk about your process, and then we'll get into a few demonstrations.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the app I wanted forever, if you have a lot of books or say DVDs or Blu-rays or board games, it can be hard to find the one that you want in your house. So I probably have, I don't know, 4,000 books, let's say. And so when you need to find a book, it's kind of a project because they're not super well organized and there are 5 people in the house, so the entropy in the system is very swift. Um, Anyway, so I wanted something where you could point the camera just at the shelves and it would search for a word. And then it would highlight it on the screen so that you could find the book that you were looking for.
can you tell me where I can find a book on astronomy?
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Conan the Librarian.
What's really interesting about your app, Bethany, is that you're actually using AI in a couple of different ways. You're using image recognition at runtime, but not LLMs. You're using LLMs to write the code that will use the image recognition at runtime.
Yeah. So yeah, the entire app runs on the user's device. There are no API calls to LLMs or anything like that. Yeah, it's taking the input, running OCR, and then running a search on the OCR and then marking it in the image.
So what's
Now-
happening is this being you've essentially you've built the app and then the app is running on the phone. It's not calling out to the LLM saying, hey, can you do this? First of all, let me just say, you have really fabulous taste. That's a cool app. That's a really cool piece of functionality. That's like you can see from the bookshelves behind me. That would come tremendously in handy here. It's a very cool app. Let me ask you this though. When you open it up, you said you put a UI on it. When you open it up, does it look like a professionally built app that you would get in the App Store from any sort of professional developer? Were you able to cobble the technology together to do that?
So yeah, actually, I guess there's so much UI code out there and in the training data that these LLMs have been trained on that, yeah, you can get a professional looking UI out of it. And especially after today, you guys won't be able to see it because it was today's project, but that app actually has a brand new UI that's better than the old one. So, and that'll go on the store later. But yeah, it's surprisingly good at UIs. You do have to iterate. I mean, doing the UI is a project. It won't just one shot some fantastic UI for you. You're going to have to give it a lot of direction step by step.
In my experience, the way that it screws up on the UI is often counterintuitive to humans. Buttons will just be not even on the screen, and it won't know that because it doesn't have familiarity with the coordinate system or something like that. Bethany, for folks who are just getting into this kind of thing or who are just marveling at the idea that this is even possible, they might not be programmers. So my question is, were you already familiar with any integrated development environments, IDEs, or other development tools, or was even getting an environment where you could write and deploy software itself part of the process that GPT walked you through? It was GPT, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that. It's GPT, Claude, and Codex are what I use. Those are sometimes other things, but generally those three. Yes, for this type of app development, I already had VS Code. I think I have some other IDE just for little Python things. But
wait, so you've been coding in Python before this?
No, it was more like little puzzle, or you're downloading someone else's Python.
Okay. So you've been interested in coding. You've
right, but I haven't
downloaded code, you've played around with it, you've massaged it, changed it around, see what it does, that kind of stuff.
Right, but haven't gone into it much. So I have VS Code, but it's mostly remained unopened.
Do you secretly have an IQ of 189 and none of what you say is translatable to moral humans? I couldn't do it.
So I did have to ask it. I said, because, I didn't even know what type of code an Android app used.
Okay.
So that was actually one of the questions to ChatGPT. I was like, this is the type of app that I want to make. Do you think this is something we can do? And of course, it will always tell you your idea is fantastic. So
right.
It's very agreeable. So it's generating this code, this beginning code. And I said, okay, now what is this and where do I put it? Do I need a different program? So I said, oh, okay, well, go download Android Studio. So I did. I mean, it really had to walk me through all of that because I had never used Android Studio before. Wasn't familiar with Android app architecture at all. So I would say the first app that you do, if you try this, is going to take longer than all the other ones because there's a lot to learn at the beginning.
So you're kind of this really interesting blend because you don't really have formal coding experience. You've never worked as a coder at Microsoft like someone like Mikhail. You genuinely didn't know what way you would use to code an Android app, but at the same time, you do have your brain just kind of works that way. It seems like you're very You're very analytic. You're very like the way that you approach the world and see things and think about things. And you have an interest in this because you had an IDE on your machine already.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that someone like that, then you're well positioned to do this. Like, say you work in IT, but you're not a programmer, but you're used to thinking about this way. You're used to working with computers. You like them. You like how. Then I think that type of person is particularly well positioned to do this.
And it's worth noting that like getting an Android emulator up and running is not trivial. Like getting an app to like run in a virtual machine that isn't like, it's one thing to write a program that runs on your computer. It's another thing to write a program that's intended to run on Android, which involves building for an environment that you're not coding in. Like it's
Different.
that is not something that I would advise beginners to try.
Well,
Yeah.
no one was there to tell me that, so
Mission accomplished.
Exactly. I love that. I love that so much. Nobody told me it's supposed to be hard, so I just didn't know.
you just did it. Oh, I would say also if you're you need to have a very let's say stubborn personality because
Yes.
there will be a lot of iterating and it's not going to be easy and it's going to take a long time. And you're going to have to try a lot of different things. But as long as you're like, this is going to get done, then you'll get it done eventually. I mean,
You won't let it beat you.
Yeah.
right. You need to have that attitude.
Bethany, could you show us this book title scanning app?
Sure. Let me grab my reading glasses here. Okay, I'll share my screen. All right. You ready to see the demo? This actually also shows like the limitations of the app because it is using a camera. So if there's glare or something like that, then it can't see that because the camera can't see it. So you'll see when it searches for Hawking, there's one of these results that'll kind of flash on and off. And that's because there's glare on the camera. So, I mean, there are limitations when you're using the camera.
That's incredible.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
That's handy. And then I also, you can see what it's like. Which one is this? This is the same.
Because like, yeah, there's a little bit of blinking here and there, but I mean, it just lights right up. Like, I mean, you can have thousands of books and you're just like, you can barely
Yeah.
see it on the screen at all. And yet like, it just highlights right there.
Yeah, it's handy. And I've used it at the library to find a book I was looking for that was misshelved too. So that's okay. And then now I'm going to show you here you'll see what happens if there are a whole lot of them because some people wondered, well, what if there were many results? I don't know who this author is, but he had a whole lot of books in the library. So I'll show you. It can handle a great number of
Oh, that's beautiful.
results. And then there's also a library mode. So you can save images of all your shelves that you have and then just search them anytime from the library.
That is really handy.
So say those were your shelves. I just assigned kind of random labels. And then you'll search. And so then that means that word is on all of these. And so then you click on the image and you can zoom in and it'll be highlighted where that is.
So until you move the book, it will be there.
Right. Yeah, you'll have to update your library occasionally.
But it stores it. That's really cool. It stores those images on your phone and then it becomes searchable on your device.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Bethany, actually, I was going to suggest you keep sharing because
okay.
I was going to ask if you could show the viewers at home what your development environment looks like.
Oh, let me open that.
I mean, I hope that's not too personal of a question. Like,
No, I just
there are folks that have no idea what a development environment even looks like. So if they could see like, this is what you download and then this is what you like
oh right.
do your vibe
Okay.
coding in and stuff.
I've actually never seen Android Studio.
And here we are. Bethany, can you walk us through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, okay, so this is Android Studio. So if you make an app, I've just created a new app, my application. And you can see this file tree over here. So when you first create an app, kind of the main program file that you're going to start with is going to be your main activity.kt. This is all just filler that it automatically puts in, and you'll replace that. And for process, I would recommend that when you make an app, first you talk through the architecture with your LLM. Like, okay, if we want to make this app, what's first the simplest version we can make? Because you want to start with basically a proof of concept version. You don't want to start with all the features that you want. That will become a nightmare really fast. So start with a proof of concept version, and then once you have that working, you'll add the features.
This is what we call agile development in the industry. The barest bonus version that you can build that does the minimum of what you need it to do is called the MVP, the minimum viable product. These are tried and true techniques that a sharp person who's never done this before can still figure out what the industry professionals have had to converge on over the course of decades.
And by the way, if you're not familiar with a minimum viable product, take a look at this show.
That's a very good point. Bethany, does the LLM modify the code directly, or are you simply telling the LLM about the code? Like, are you opening ChatGPT in a browser, for example, or Claude in a browser and having a conversation there?
Right. Okay. So I would say that for me, the best process seems to be to start either in Claude or ChatGPT. I do it in a browser. And discuss what will be sort of what you guys just called the MVP version, and then have it create the files for you. At first, it may start to give you directions. Well, if you add this and add this, if you're not a coder, don't, it'll take you forever. Just say, create a complete main activity.kt. And then, and what other files that it'll generally, once you ask it, for a project, it'll generally generate a little file tree. And that's kind of like your list of files to ask for. Then you're going to go through and paste them in here. And so all the KT files, like programming type files, that'll be in this Java folder under main. So for people who aren't familiar with this, it'll take a while to figure out. So app, src, main, Java. So that's where the programming files are going to be. And then res, that's going to be where most of your layout type files.
That stands for source and resources, by the way.
Okay. I'm learning new things on this, so this is great.
These are all the files that, when bundled together and combined, create a true application on an Android phone.
Yeah. So one application has all, and once you start adding, there are a lot more than this. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into these apps. You appreciate developers more as you do this. Oh, and obviously, if you're a developer, you can really like churn out apps with this process because you'll be able to read it and really, it'll be much faster if the person is already a developer.
My job consists almost entirely of just hitting tab for Copilot to just let it finish typing entire paragraphs at a time or entire functions at a time. Now,
does this make you nervous as a developer?
No, because the functions that I wanted to write, I still need to guide it along the lines of what the bigger picture is and like what the overall goal of the project is. Honestly, what it's doing is it's cranking out very quickly code that I would have just had to like delegate to my fingertips anyway. So it's like, as long as what I want it to type is predictable, like I can just autopilot my way through it or copilot my way through it, but I'm still doing the conceptual stuff. Now, Bethany, you'd said that the AI cranks out this main source file for you, and
right,
then
and a few others, because you'll need enough to have a layout and this kind of thing.
And
you're going to load that in, and you're going to, it won't work.
Yes.
It will not work the first time.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to drive home. Not only will it not work, but it probably won't even be recognized as compilable. In other words, like your development environment will like be littered with like squiggly little red lines all over the place saying like, there's an error here, there's an error there. Like the dev environment won't even be able to read the darn thing.
Right. So yeah, it won't run or build or anything like that the first time. If it does, I mean, amazing. It's like you won the lottery.
So how did you get past that, Bethany? You described that, the fact that it's not compilable, it won't work when you first do it. How did you get through it? How did you iterate and get to the goal?
Okay, so your next step is going to be, you can choose. When I first started doing this, Codex was not available on the $20 a month subscription to ChatGPT, so I didn't have Codex
Explain what that is for people who don't know.
So Codex is like magic. Codex came out, I think it was June 5th, and it was like Christmas for an adult because you woke up and all of a sudden you had access to Codex, which was amazing. So
This is an open AI product, and it's
Yes.
a sort of a code development studio in the ChatGPT style interface.
So if you upload your project to GitHub,
We
so
should
you need
probably explain that GitHub is the code repository. It's owned by Microsoft, and it's one of the primary tools that people who are developing applications for a living use to store their code, to version their code, and to interact with it.
Exactly. It's a place where you can basically save your code to as you're writing your software. You could just develop it on your own computer, but usually if you're working with a team of software developers, you want to have some cloud repository where a bunch of you can check out files, make changes, and put them back in. And so GitHub is sort of this central management hub, as the name implies, that's very, very popular. It's used for hobbyists and very high-grade professional projects alike. And now Codex can see your code directly in GitHub.
Yeah, and it can actually modify it in GitHub. So this is phenomenal. So once you have it up on GitHub, then you set up your Codex to connect to that. And now we could spend like hours going through how to do each of these steps. Instead of that, I would say ask ChatGPT, ask Claude. Like, how do I, because GitHub is made for developers. It is not user-friendly at all. You're just like a regular, like for regular people. So ask questions, just ask, the LLM will answer. So you'll connect Codex to your GitHub repository. Now you can take all those errors that you got in Android Studio and you're going to copy and paste them into Codex and say, how can we fix this? Now you can start off with a simple query like that at first, and you'll start to get fewer and fewer errors as it corrects.
I want to drive something home at this juncture, which is you do not need to understand what the errors are. The syntax of the errors is usually extremely obtuse and complicated, and you really need to understand some pretty deep computer science magic to decode a lot of these errors. But fortunately, you don't need to do that. You can outsource that to the AI.
Yeah, it's awesome. Codex is awesome. So then it will show you what it came up with, what fixes. Sometimes you have to wait a few minutes on Codex as it's, coming up with its fixes and looking through your code and all of this kind of thing.
Once you actually get this thing to a point at which the development environment no longer has little red squiggly lines all over the place, at that point you can hit run, which is just the little play button in the upper in the top bar, and what your environment will do is create a little, like on screen, it'll create a little virtual Android phone, and your app will be running on that phone, right?
Right. Now for my app, because it uses the camera, you can't use those virtual devices really. So I had to actually connect my phone by Wi-Fi, and it'll walk you through
Fantastic.
that.
And of course, GPT taught you how to like connect your phone and to like set it into developer mode and blast an APK file over to it and everything, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, so it'll tell you how to put it in developer mode. Then Android Studio it's pretty straightforward in telling you how to connect your phone, and then it'll launch it on your device, which is nice.
Fantastic. So our folks at home kind of get a gist for like how this cycle goes. You test out what works on your app and what doesn't, and you ask GPT to fix it, or Claude or whatever. And then it'll recommend modifications to your source code files. You make those changes, they don't work, they show up with red squiggles. You paste the red squiggle errors into Codex until they go away. You run the code again, and lather, rinse, repeat. So, when this is all done, can you talk a little bit about what you did to build and deploy this thing so that other people can get their hands on it?
When I was still in the middle of like making the app, a friend asked, "Oh, will you put it up in the App Store?" And not knowing any better, I said, "Sure." Then I had set it, so you have to do it. So I was glad that I said it because there were points at setting up with Google where I would have just been like, "Oh, forget it, who cares?" But I said I would do it, so I was going to do it. That's actually, it's all just a bureaucratic things. It's more just, it
That
will not be logically difficult. It will not be hard. It'll just be, you have to keep doing things.
that part's not sexy. It's true.
Yeah, that part's not fun. If
It
you
mostly
use,
involves like you open an account, you get that account approved for a developer publication, you fill out a whole bunch of forms about what your app is and what its capabilities are and what permissions it needs and blah blah blah, right?
yeah, lots and lots. And if you're an individual developer, not a company, this is actually what has now made me start a company, so I don't have to do this anymore. You have to have closed testing with 12 testers for 2 weeks. It's if you're already a developer in a developer community, it might be easier to get testers. If you're not, normal people are not going to want to do that. They have to say, like, it's telling them this app might not be safe. This app hasn't been checked. It seems very sketchy. It looks like you might be downloading something that will brick your phone. I mean, you're not going to want it.
I'm really curious about like some of your big picture takeaways from having done this, because you give us, I think, a really good taste of what it's like to actually be under the hood and building with these tools. I'm kind of curious what like your big picture takeaways and thoughts were about the state of the world. First of all, I have no doubt that you are far smarter than I am, and if I tried to do this, I would not be met with the same success
I
that
know.
you have had. But still, I mean, if it took you 8 weeks to do this, like I could probably do it in maybe 8 months. I would get that to that point eventually. And it sort of raises this question about, if anyone who's really motivated to build wants to do it, they probably wouldn't do it as quickly as you have, but they probably could. And that's a really interesting kind of new world to live in, because that wasn't the case, you know, 18 months ago. It's like a blink of an eye.
Was
I mean,
barely even the case 2 weeks ago with Codex coming out.
I mean, it's you're there, Bethany. It's like you're present at the creation. You're like one of the first like non-programmers to start just jumping in and building an app a week. I mean, it's just extraordinary output.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. It unleashes so much more productivity and creativity just in general. And even for developers, I know some people worry that it'll take jobs. Like, no, you're just going to be way faster and better at this than the non-developers.
Right.
Like I have a friend who's a developer, like a senior developer at a large company, and he said it's amazing. He's like being able to use it, things that would have taken over a year can be done in like 3 months. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah, and unlocking this for everyone who doesn't know the coding syntax. I mean, I think you'll just start to see a lot of neat things. And a lot more tools that maybe didn't get as much attention before. Most companies seem to want to develop things that have social aspects and make you make accounts and are going to have advertisements and all of this kind of stuff. I actually don't want that. So I'm purposely making apps that don't have the advertising, don't make you make an account, everything's on your device. I think you'll start to see more things like that.
Let me ask you another question. One of the things I remember, writing code very badly at VBA when I was young, and it was really frustrating because there would be this like getting stuck factor. You would work on something for some number of hours or days, and then you'd basically go into a cul-de-sac. You'd get completely stuck. Do you find that these new tools allow you to get unstuck when that happens?
I mean, yeah, that's actually one of the best things about it because you're much less held back by the amount of, let's say crystallized intelligence, whatever, the amount of code that you're not held back by that anymore. So if there's some fix, it will help you. And if you do get completely stuck, even with the LLMs, well, then you have GitHub and you just roll things back a little and take a different approach. Because you can iterate so quickly, it's so much easier to get out of being stuck. I
And
think
and what role did using multiple LLMs play? Like, for example, would you find yourself like you were stuck in Codex, so you'd throw it into Claude or something else where you could essentially have them riff off each other?
yeah, so that will happen. Sometimes codecs, one of them will get stuck where another isn't. Um, One thing that's really helpful with prompting is you'll ask it not just how can we fix this, but ask how can we fix this? Is there more than one approach? what are those approaches? What are the pros and cons of those approaches? And what do you think is the best one? Create a list of tasks to accomplish this. So that's a good prompt to give Codex all in one prompt when you're stuck.
That is very good prompt engineering practice. I'm like, I do prompt engineering for a living, and I'm impressed.
Well, prompt, like my favorite thing is prompt engineering. So also the different tools have different strengths. So Claude used to be the best at debugging, but now I find it kind of gets in these loops where it starts regenerating the same functions, but in slightly different syntax, and it just keeps, which isn't great.
I've had those kind of conversations with Mikhail.
I mean, in that way, I guess it's kind of, it can be like a person. So that depends. Claude's great at UI. It needs a lot of direction. Like if you just tell it to give you a UI, it might give you something that you would never want in a million years. But if you're prompting like a color palette with it, or even if you don't know a color palette yet, the type of emotions or associations you want to evoke with the colors you use, you can tell it that and say, use colors that make people think of reliability and stability and intelligence or something. Then you know, it will do that. And then you have to start giving it lots of instructions to get it to place things how you want. But Claude makes very beautiful UI elements, I would say. Now for images, Claude not as great. Like when you need to create things like icons or like Play Store feature images, then I would say ChatGPT is much better at that, just in my personal experience. So they all have their own strengths, and as you mess around with them, you kind of figure out what they are. Oh, and Claude, you can actually have Claude look at the files in your Git repository. It can't change them, but it can look at them. So that can be helpful with debugging.
You know, mentioning the Git repository, one of the conversations that I've had with Mikhail is one of the interesting things about these tools is the things that they do solve for versus the things that they don't solve for from an automation perspective, right? So for example, code logic, it can generate code relatively easily. But as the individual who is doing this, you still have to be able to hook up the plumbing on the back end. That means you need to be able to understand what an IDE is, what it does, how to use it, what a code repository is, what it is, how to use it, plug things into different APIs. I mean, that's stuff that you probably just need to learn and I guess you can learn it with the help of advisement from the LLMs. But how did you find that part of it, the understanding the environment aspect of it?
Yeah, that was all with the LLMs. The LLMs, it's kind of like you have an assistant or several assistants or employees that are really brilliant at certain things and really not at other, like strangely lacking in common sense and other things.
So it's exactly like a real company.
Yeah,
Especially one populated by computer nerds.
So they can walk you through all of those things when you get stuck. It's pretty good at that. There were only a couple times where I had to search like Stack Overflow or something. And it was for basic things that, for example, the first time you make a project in Android Studio, I think it inserts example or something into your package. Well, then at the very end, when you try to create a signed package to put on the Play Store, it won't accept that. And you'll be like, what is happening? And so there are all kinds of little hurdles, but you'll figure them out. You will figure them out through searches and talking to these agents.
Ash and I are old enough to have played role-playing Sierra games and other like point and clicks where like there's an item that you have to pick up at the beginning of the game that you need at the end of the game. And if you don't have that item, then you can't actually win the game. So, you know,
usually a crudely drawn and pixelated key.
Exactly. Or like a mop or something.
I loved Sierra games. I'm so glad someone else, I mean, yes.
There's a lively resurgence of point and click games and like Sierra style point and click plus nominal text games that is happening right now, but that's a topic for another time.
I was more of an Infocom guy.
You know, Infocom was solid, LucasArts was solid, but back to Bethany. The point is,
please pull us out of the nerd loop.
Now, so Bethany, you now have this app on the App Store, right? So
yeah,
let's see what if you want to share a link, if you want to like show the icon or
Oh,
whatever, like
well,
please feel
let's see.
free.
I'm about so Shelf Scan is on the Android App Store, and you can search for that. I'm about to re-release it under the company name with the updated UI and updated functionality, and that'll
Beautiful.
start probably beginning of next week. Um, if you go, and then there are all the other apps, and those will come out under Ulix. That's the company name. Ulix.app. You can sign up for the emails, and then you'll get an email when a new app goes up.
That's ulix.app, and I'll have that available. I'll post it on the screen, and I'll also have it in the YouTube comments and other text media surrounding this presentation.
So Bethany,
Um,
you're actually you're spinning up a company. You're going to release these apps professionally, and you're going to hopefully
Yeah,
make some
well,
money here doing this, right? I mean, that's pretty cool.
we'll see if it makes any money. I don't know, but
That wasn't the point. That's just a nice
yeah.
bonus.
So I presented that I was asked to present this to an AI group that I'm in, and the consensus was you kind of have a startup that you're treating like a hobby. What are you doing? So I
Wow.
thought
can
about
you
that. I was like, I guess that's true.
can
What
you
do you
tell
think?
us a little bit about the other apps?
Yeah, so there's gosh, there are a lot. There's track analysis. Okay, so this is track analysis. And people, now that you have access to all these LLMs, you can actually take, any kind of data you have and ask for an analysis. So it seems like a lot of people will talk about like, oh, I have fatigue in the afternoons, but not every afternoon, or I think I might have this food sensitivity or whatever. So this is a way to track all of these things for whatever length of time you want, say a week or 2 weeks. And then you can export it to CSV to take to your doctor. And if you want to import into an LLM and say, hey, can you find any patterns? I'm trying to figure out, if I might be sensitive to this food, or if there's some thing that I'm eating that's causing me to feel ill later or something. Do you see any patterns? So it's just a way to easily track this and not have to sign up for an account with someone or put your stuff on someone else's cloud. It's all on your device, and then you export it to CSV and save it on your device, or share it. You can see
And
on here, there's
CSV, I mean, most of the folks, especially the ones that Ash brings in, are very familiar with CSVs from the finance world. But for those that don't know, that's just a spreadsheet file, like for Excel.
yeah, and it's basically portable to any type of spreadsheet program. A CSV file is pretty universally accepted
It
and
it stands for
enforceable.
comma separated variables.
Yeah.
Values, comma separated
That
values.
Oh,
Am I
values.
right,
talking
values.
code
My
with this?
bad, my bad.
And so you'll see I have a lot of nonsense data in here while I was doing this. It's because I was checking to make sure that the pagination for every 100 was working. So you have to load more because I didn't know how many records people would have, but in case somebody racked up thousands of records, I didn't want them to load all at once in the history.
Very
So
smart.
anyway, now we also have Guten. That's a Project Gutenberg e-reader. There are other e-readers, but I couldn't find one that looked the way I wanted it to look.
Mhm.
So, or they'd have ads all over them, which I don't like, and this sort of thing, or too complicated. Like I just want to open it, I want to download the book, and I want to read it. We don't need to overcomplicate the experience. So I decided to make it. You can tap on images and zoom in, search on Project Gutenberg, download your books. It's pretty straightforward.
That is beautiful. You know, Ash, this does suggest an answer to a question that you had before, which is like, how exactly is this going to start changing the ecosystem? And we see a lot of apps that have been published over the course of the last several years try to be all things to all people and try to capitalize on that by, ads and in-app revenue generators and add-ons and stuff like that. So this really does spell the return of a lot of people who make apps that just do one darn thing that we need them to do, and then that becomes the standard app that people will use for that one simple thing.
And that's my preference, or is
Yeah.
having discrete apps. Yeah, so that's another. I agree. I think people will start making these. This app is called Keep Clip. You can basically share text from just about any application to it. If there are some applications that have custom toolbars like Kindle, where they don't let you do that. So in those, you would need to copy and paste it into Keep Clip. But most apps, you can just share it directly. And it also adds to it's called a text action toolbar. It's the toolbar that comes up when you say highlight text in a browser. So this Keep Clip adds a function to that where it will then share it directly to Keep Clip. It lets you just save snippets of text. And then you can take these and you can export it to CSV. You can also search it, filter, tag it, whatever.
You really are at a point where you can essentially, hey, you want a thing, you want an application, you search the App Store. If it doesn't exist there, you're just going to build it.
Yes. And that's actually how all of these apps came about. So it was just stuff that I wanted that I couldn't get, or couldn't get it in the form that I wanted it in, or that I thought would be helpful for friends. Like this one, I thought I don't really have a use for this, but I have friends who loan out lots of books or lots of tools. So this app is called Loan It, and it lets you keep track of everything you loan out. When you add a record, you can attach a picture to it, or if it's a book, you can scan the barcode to quickly just pre-fill all the book information. If you were going to say loan a pair of glasses, I don't know why you would do that. That's not a good idea. But say you did. Then we're going to loan them. And then you can also view like a list of borrowers, tap a borrower, see everything that they've borrowed. When you enter the borrower's information, if you want, you can tap the little profile looking image, and that'll bring up your contacts, and you can select one of your contacts. I didn't demo that part because I thought my contacts might not appreciate being.
Fair enough. So Bethany, we got to see some of the apps here. I'm really curious for somebody who may be out there in the audience watching this conversation right now, seeing the things that you built, who feel like they've started to catch fire with what you're doing, who feel like their creative energy has started to be unleashed, but they don't have any background in doing this. They literally came to this with no tech skills besides maybe using their word processor in a spreadsheet. What advice would you give them about the very first couple of steps to take? Where should they start?
Be determined. And you should start by talking to one of these LLMs. If you already have an app idea, ask it about that. If you don't yet have an idea, just see what things that you want that you can't get that are available there. This has really opened up the opportunity to sort of unleash your creativity and your ideas in ways that before, learning the syntax of a coding language, that's quite a mountain to climb. That's going to take a lot of time. And now you don't have to do that. So what can you make? Like now that you know that, all of a sudden this mountain is removed. That's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible times. And if you do know how to code, wow, what can you make now? Because now it's going to be so much faster. You can do so many things. I don't know. We live in neat times.
We sure do. And I also think one of your secrets is that you were building apps that you really wanted to actually use, that you wanted something done and you built it. So I think that was probably part of the drive. They're just cool. They're just cool little applications that you've built.
Yeah, and I think that does make it a lot easier to make them because you know exactly what you want. I use all of these now. They're all on my phone. And it's great. It's great to be able to make the tools that you want to be able to use.
Very cool. Mikhail, what are your final thoughts, key takeaways from this?
You'd asked me whether or not I'm scared for my job, and I'm really not. The field is wide open and that there is plenty of room for everybody. It's not like there's a shortage of apps to create. It's not like app space is this finite resource. I use AI in writing my code ubiquitously. I am not finding myself at a shortage of things to do with these newfound tools. And so I welcome everybody, and come one, come all. I do want to emphasize that the computing environment, the ecosystem of app stores and companies that have presences on the Android App Store, and like the bureaucracy that's required to get on there, that all is going to start changing as more and more people start doing what Bethany is doing, to such an extent that the very concept of an app might look very different probably a few years from now in what I think people are going to find is remarkably short order.
Really interesting stuff. Bethany Hunt, thank you so much for sharing all of your work with us and for demoing those apps.
Well, thanks for having me, and I hope that more people try this because it's neat. I can't wait to see all the proliferation of interesting things that come up on these app stores.
That's the perfect final note to end on.